Salvē, Mike, and welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at John chapter 4, verses 39 and 40. But first, last time in John chapter 4. And there we have it. Here's the rubric, everything that we look for as we go through the text. Let's get started. Ex civitate autem illa multi crediderunt in eum, Samaritanorum propter verbum mulieris testimonium parhebentis, quia dixit mihi omnia quacumque fecit, cum venissent ergo ad illum Samaritani roga verunt eum ut ibi maneret, et mansit ibi duos. Oh, dies. Almost left a word out. Well, very first thing that we have, as in the Greek, is a prepositional phrase, which takes the ablative case. Civitate, autem can fit in there. Illa could go with civitate, since this is a astas feminine third, as I sometimes refer to them. Or it could be our subject, depending on the verb. Multi, that seems to indicate that illa should not be the nominative. And then crediderunt with it erunt confirms that illa is part of the prepositional phrase, and multi is instead going to be part of our subject. Another prepositional phrase here, we need to confirm whether or not this has a noun to modify or if it's standing in as a substantive. Nope, that's the wrong form, so no. This prepositional phrase ends here, and multi is a standalone subject. Crediderunt, third, plural. We've got the reduplication here. Therefore, perfect tense, Greek perfect, and it is active and indicative. Moving to our prepositional phrase, civitate, e of course confirming that, and that's singular feminine. Autem doesn't fit with that, of course being its own thing. Illa modifying civitate, autem. I think normally I've been translating them in this as but it can also mean yet. No, I'm mixing it up there with Tommen. Autem can mean but. It sort of means and. It's used in the place of the Greek de, which is often translated as and. It can mean now, but I think I'm just going to keep with what I think the pattern is. It's hard to keep track. Now, before I continue with the verb, I'm actually going to go down to Samaritanorum. O-R-U-M there tells us this is genitive, plural, masculine. And we need to figure out, what does this own? Can't own in eum because in eum refers to Jesus, and he, though mockingly is called a Samaritan, is not actually a Samaritan. Propter verbum mulieris, that can't be owned by Samaritanorum. Instead, this must be owning multi, but owning as a partitive, so many from the Samaritans. But I will say of the Samaritans because that's proper in English. And of course genitive. In eum, um right there from is, ea, id, taking the accusative case, singular and masculine, referring to Jesus as I've said. In him, propter, prepositional phrase again, verbum mulieris is the wrong form, testimonium actually is the correct form, but testimonium is its own noun, and verbum is its own noun, so one cannot be modifying the other. So this prepositional phrase must in here, with the possibility of an assumed repetition with testimonium. We'll get to that. Verbum, right there, plus accusative, singular. Verbum, verbi is neuter. We've got mulier, mulieris, is right there is genitive, singular, masculine, not masculine, what's wrong with me? Feminine. Owning verbum, believed in him, propter on account of. Testimonium, right there is our ending. This is an ium neuter, so the genitive is just testimony. Not that we need to know that for here, but as a means of retaining vocabulary, you need to repeat these things in my brain at least. Please don't sneak into my apartment and whisper them in my ears. That would really freak me out, and I'd probably have you arrested. Please don't do that. Anyway, if you repeat the patterns like Os atis is feminine every single time I've ever seen it. Eum in the neuter means the eyes contract together in the genitive. It's a good way to remember. It's good, I should say, to remember such patterns so that you retain them and repeat them to yourself when you come across them. And it should help in the retention. I'm stumbling over my words. In the retention of Latin vocabulary. Moving on. This is either nominative or accusative. We already have our subject there with multi, so accusative, singular, or yes, and neuter. All right. This needs a verb to take it as its object, or it is another object of propter. We have perhabentes as our final word in the clause. We know because you got a quia right there. Intis, is, is the ending, which is genitive singular. In t of perhibeo. Yeah, I think it's perhibeo. I've seen this enough times that I should know that one myself. Is actually a verbal ending. In t tells us that it's the present active participle, genitive singular, feminine to match mulieris. With testimonium as the object of perhabentis, as we saw it from John in chapter 1. Comma. Quia, introducing a either direct or indirect statement. That. Dixit is going to be part of the direct statement. Yeah, it is a direct statement. After the quia, I don't think in Latin it works where you have quia introducing a statement and then you'll have a verb of the previous clause following it, as Greek might. It's not a normal thing. I don't know why I'm bringing it up. Back to work. Dixit, we've seen that many times before. Don't need to parse it. We already know what it is. Main verb of this clause. He said, because it's going to be in reference to Jesus. She's reporting what Jesus did. Mihi, dative singular. Indirect object. Omnia, this is naturally a accusative, plural, neuter. Direct object of dixit. Quaecumque, we find our case ending actually at the beginning part of quaecumque, and that AE is going to be nominative plural, nominative or accusative plural of the neuter, referring back to omnia. Cumque is just the suffix added on to create this interesting and sometimes frustrating word. Matching that, but it does introduce a relative clause subordinate to this first one. Just sticking the things in there to remind us that this is plural. And then feci, from facio, facere, feci, our first singular perfect active indicative verb. I did, or I have done. The second one fits a lot better into English, of course. Cum, when isn't, we've got a new verb here, wrong form for it to be part of a direct quote, so that closes there. Cum needs something, a noun or an adjective to be a preposition. When isn't is obviously not that, so instead this is going to be a cum clause with a subjunctive verb. So we can translate this as when, since, or although. When either as in time or as in circumstances. If it were indicative, then we would have one of the two. I never remember if it's circumstances or if it's time that takes the indicative. I think it's circumstances. Might be wrong. When isent, inti there as our ending, but isse as the suffix on the stem tells us that this is a third plural. Isse is pluperfect. It's active, and it is subjunctive. Because they had come, although they had come, so adversative, or when they had come. No. I think time is with the indicative, so this would be circumstantial. When with their coming, we might say. Ergo, and move that to the front. And usually we will translate such clauses as the indicative in English rather than leaving them in their subjunctive when we have a word like cum. Odd prepositional phrase. Illum Samaritanis, wrong form, so it ends right there. Odd takes the accusative. Illum, singular and masculine, the farther demonstrative again, and this is going to be referring to Jesus. When they had come to Samaritani, I right there is going to be our nominative, plural, masculine for the subject. Subject of winescent, but also of roga verunt. Don't think we need to parse that. Ending is familiar enough that, at least until the end of the chapter, I should probably just already parsed. Move on. Eum, already also parsed that right there. Direct object. Ut is they're going to ask him in order that, so purpose clause. Or I suppose we could say with the result that. I'm going to stick with purpose. As sometimes ut can introduce clauses just like quia can. It's a mess. Ibi, adverb showing location. Moneret et as our ending. Ere as the suffix added onto our present stem tells us that it's going to be the imperfect version of that. So third, singular, imperfect tense, active, and subjunctive. Ut with a subjunctive, as I said, it has to be either a purpose clause or result clause. Mansit it right there. This is maneo, manere, mansi. So this is going to be the perfect stem, third, singular. Duos omicron sigma right there tells us that it is accusative, plural, masculine. Modifying dies, another accusative, plural, masculine. This just tells us that since dies is masculine, we know that there's a time function going on here rather than de just being the object. If it were feminine, then it would just be a normal object. But accusative with de, accusative with to is not an ablative, accusative, not an adjective. An accusative of duration of time. And there we go. Let's go ahead and take a look at this in its own context. But from that town, many of Samaritans believed in him on account of word of woman bearing witness, that he said to me all things whatsoever I have done. Therefore, when they had come to that man, Samaritans asked him, so that there he remained. And he remained there for 2 days. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope taking a look at this has been helpful for you, and I hope that you have a very good day. Wale.